Okay, so welcome to another episode of the API Vision Working Group. So I have the first thing of the agenda, and basically is that to see that we have several issues at the moment, and we have this board that you can see all the issues for the working group. And I see that at the moment it's a bit chaotic, but I think as we progress, we can start splitting issues, refining them, and I think that as we progress with the group, probably, we are going to see like that, like we have like issues more specific about things that we have to do. But at the moment, I can see that we still have to split issues, refine them, and maybe it's a little bit chaotic. And saying that, I think that what we can do is continue like with the summary of all the issues that we are mainly working at the moment. So the first one I have here is API state of the art. I'm bringing this here today because I think we have no updates on that issue, but I can see that this issue is going to give us a lot of insights into other issues, because as we know how other good companies are doing with the APIs, probably we are going to get ideas and more information about what we can do with our API as well. And Luke has been working on the deprecations of the GraphQL. Maybe Grant, you can summarize a little bit.
For sure, I'll do my best here. Yeah, so he was working on create an ecosystem process for stewardship of GraphQL deprecation removals, and he's stating here that this is turning into more of a self-service deprecations issue template update, some future developer docs updates, and hopefully a process update that might be triage bot driven. So combined, hopefully this will help us to kind of accomplish what that issue was trying to do with a little bit of with very little human oversight. The other issue Luke mentioned here is encourage GraphQL deprecations to be kept around indefinitely where possible. So we were having some discussions about maybe low overhead around maintaining GraphQL fields that aren't being used. Like what is the value gained in deprecating a field unless there's maybe a performance or security issue that makes it a priority. So he mentioned that Brett raised a problem here that I'll need to go check out. I'm not familiar with, but we wanted to ask for some other opinions on this. So I think Luke went and did that. And Brett raised a problem of cruft as the downside of the proposal. Luke says, I tested out what it looks like if we move each deprecation to its own module. In many cases, it leads to a clean, self-contained deprecation. I'll change the proposal to be for only deprecations that can be fully self-contained. So sounds interesting. I need to get more familiar with what that really means, but it sounds like we're maybe making a little bit of progress there. Any questions or comments on those two? And if not, you can raise them in the issue and reach out to Luke.
There is another issue that we created recently about an idea of using the warning header to communicate to clients about deprecations in general, like about things that the client should be aware. Should we include this in the issue about, at least link this together with the deprecation work that we are doing? So when we tag a specific endpoint as deprecated, we can automatically add a message in the warning header to the client, and we can even change the documentation to let the client know that there's something going on, and you might want to change this endpoint into milestones and things like that.
Right.
Kind of integrate that within the deprecation process that we have, because I'm not 100% on the GraphQL side, but the deprecation that we document currently and and that we mark as that the fields we mark as deprecated are currently only on the document side, right, on the documentation side. Do we do anything else, on the GraphQL that tells the users this is actually deprecated? Like in the schema, do we tag something as deprecated so that when the user explores the GraphQL API, they realize some of the fields or queries are deprecated, so they don't go and use and build something on top of it? Or it's just like described in the documentation?
Well, I was going to say no, we don't, but actually, I think I've seen some fields listed as deprecated under GraphQL, but maybe it's the removal itself, like when it's going to be removed. I don't know. Can anyone else speak to that one? Are you familiar?
I'm not sure because we for the REST API, for example, I'm not sure if we are doing something specifically apart from the documentation. So
no, I don't think we are doing that aside from the documentation. Yeah.
So I think that maybe what we can do is create a new issue about what you are saying, Fabio, and then maybe start a discussion around that because I know that there is one issue that is about API version 5, but apart from that, we don't have we still have to discuss a lot of things about the APIs in terms of deprecation, like how often we deprecate something, what is the process, is the headers are going to respond with that, or is the documentation really clear about that endpoint is deprecated? So I'm not sure if that maybe we have from what you are saying, maybe we can create kind of an epic, and maybe that's expanding to multiple issues that we have to create and review and maybe make some other progress. Luke was working mainly on GraphQL deprecations, but at the end we have to have some similarities about if we deprecate something in REST API, shall we deprecate the same on GraphQL, or how is the process between both APIs? Because that is another important point here, to have a kind of similar vision between the whole APIs.
Yeah.
And Fabio, yeah, I was looking for that issue as well, and you got to it before I did. So yeah, there is an issue there, and in the proposal it does mention both REST and GraphQL. So I think that covers it. But if something's missing, I think we should carry some more discussion into that issue. Yeah.
The idea is to as we deprecate something in the API, it's more like we see that holistically. So we updated the documentation, we update the headers, and we have a process to mark something as deprecated and actually then removing the code. So a kind of a holistic process that can apply to both REST and GraphQL.
Right. Agreed.
Okay, moving on, API documentation, Andy.
Yeah, I assigned myself to an issue to look into how we can automate the REST API documentation. Yeah, I haven't looked into that too much yet, but I think my plan is to try to come up with iterations, because there's already a lot of documentation, and if we introduce automation now, that will probably break all this documentation. So we probably want to figure out something how we can fix it part by part. And yeah, but there's no process on the progress on this so far. I just assigned myself to this, and yeah, when I have some time, I'll start looking into that.
I'll ask a question on that. How do you see an open API spec playing into the automation process, or do you not?
Yeah, I think the original issue already had some comments about this, and Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought about this, and maybe this will be a good approach, but this will be like a big iteration. This will basically mean to move all of the documentation to some open API thing. Either that, or we have to maintain both documentations, our own and the open API one. Yeah, so I'm not sure about this. And I'm also not super familiar with the open API spec yet, but maybe there's a way we can use both, or maybe there's a way we can generate documentation that goes and looks like our own documentation from open API. Yeah, but this is something I should definitely consider.
Cool. Glad to know you're already thinking about that.
Cool. And Katie, I think you have the next one.
Yep, just an update from the style guide perspective, because I think in the last update, Axel mentioned that we'll start looking at the API style guide and seeing where we can consolidate, improve, do fixes there, and maybe make it a little bit more standardized. But we haven't, also not much progress there at all. Axel's been on holiday and I'm covering his group work for him at the moment. So we haven't been able to get going with that, but hopefully we will in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, status still pretty much the same as last time.
Cool. I have the next point. So I've been working on the issue define API user personas and consumers, and I feel like we're making pretty good progress here. I've gotten a lot of good feedback. I got some last bits of feedback end of week last week. I'm going to work through that early this week and hopefully get an MR out to add the survey to an info box, for example, to our API docs pages directly. So maybe top level, I'm open to how this looks or how I want to start somewhere. So maybe it'll be top level, we can add from there. But once the current survey that's running in the banner on the doc site ends, it should be ending at least by the end of this month. We'll replace that banner. So this is just a way to get it out there and start getting some feedback as soon as we can. And so I added a preview link there, and you can also go into the issue to see more on that. The second kind of part of that issue is also in getting feedback through customer interviews. So I haven't ramped up a pipeline of customers yet on that, but I'm going to hopefully have more time after I get the survey posted. I'm going to start with a call that I set up with Kingland, which was a suggestion from Victor to reach out to. So I have one customer call. Other calls that I'm having, I'm trying to get to API questions after some of the integration questions I'm asking as well, and hopefully we'll get more customers in the backlog or pipeline so that I have calls set up that I can get more feedback on. Any questions there?
What are we aiming to get from the survey?
So yeah, I was thinking about this. So I've got these two issues. The next one, global API observability as well, and I think they're both data feedback sources for. I hope will inform our prioritization for the rest of our efforts. So for one, I think if we're hearing a lot of feedback that points to, if they're saying everything looks great, APIs are great, but the docs just need a lot of work, for example. Okay, that tells us something. More likely it's going to be a little more complicated than that, but hopefully, we can kind of glean what's kind of top of mind for the heaviest users of our API docs and of our APIs between survey and customer interview feedback, and we can start to really narrow in and prioritize. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of that. The second item, the global API observability, I think same thing. If we're starting to see performance issues in certain areas or high usage in certain areas, like there's certain things that could lead us to in terms of where we focus.
An important part of that issue was also defining the API personas. So is there an iteration where we use the feedback from the survey to review our persona definitions or add extra ones if they're missing? I mean, do
Yes,
we have
that
a
is
sheet for that in advance?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. We are hoping to better understand our personas as well. Yeah, and so there's an exit criteria or criterion in our working group to update our personas if there's a need. So that might be refining those that are there. It could be adding new personas if we feel like that's necessary. Okay, I'll move to the next one, global API observability. Frankly, just no updates yet here. I've been focused on the survey aspect and the issue above. But yeah, I was thinking what could be helpful is to see if there are any other volunteers to help share this epic that I've created. I did have, we'll talk about in a second, I met with Gerzhigorj and had a coffee chat with him. And we know that there are some issues and epics out there around the GraphQL blueprint. So there might be some issues related to observability that we can, run with those that already exist or add new issues. So the epic itself, I think, could break into a lot of issues. And I would like to see any other volunteers who'd like to help participate in that. Probably some of you have a lot more experience with the tooling that we already have in place and the gaps and knowledge of the gaps. So it would be probably helpful to get some more sponsorship of that issue.
So one thing that maybe you can do, Grant, is because at the moment we have the top level epic, and then we have another epic, right, and a couple of issues. So I'm not sure if maybe we can like prioritize the issues in some way, or create maybe, I don't know exactly what you need at the moment, but maybe make something more specific or a couple of issues, and then, even to jump into the epic, maybe jump into smaller issues. But I'm not sure if you need, like, at the moment, more help with the whole API observability, or with some specific things that maybe we already have on issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think one bit of this is I'm focused on the other issue right now in terms of the time I have. So I think it's just gonna be a heavier lift to get familiar with everything that's there. And I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. So once I get a better understanding of the lay of the land, like where things are right now, then I think it's going to be easier to say, okay, here's some of the gaps that we can start focusing on. I know one thing that comes top of mind is just making sure we have really clear dashboards around maybe deprecated GraphQL fields. I thought that would be valuable to be able to see when we're making decisions around deprecations. But I think that's an assumption about what isn't most important right now. I don't have the full picture yet. So that's where I think, I think this would probably be a really good one for Gerzhigorj. I thought he might be able to make it to this one. So maybe he could help or point me into someone that would be interested.
I agree with all of that. I think the key thing here is defining what we want those dashboards to be. And I think if maybe it'll be helpful if people have opinions on that, I'll try and contribute myself as to go to that issue and list out or add sub issues for that epic about exactly what Grafana dashboards we need that will help us define obviously which data is missing in the logs, and maybe we already have it and can start building things up.
Awesome. Yeah, just taking a note down on that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that might be essentially what we're looking for, is what dashboards do we want. There could be more to it, maybe other tooling to make it easier to capture that data, but maybe Grafana and what we have today, Elasticsearch, right? I think maybe that covers all of our use cases. Yeah, anyone watching the recording, feel free to reach out if you're interested in assisting on this epic. Cool. So I think, Arturo, you had added this next point originally. Did you have anything you wanted to share first on it?
Do you mean the GraphQL blueprint update? Yeah, so apparently we have this GraphQL API blueprint and effort, but I'm not sure if they are actively working on that. So one idea that we have is that maybe because we are working with the API vision, we can trying to bring that into this group. And Grant and Gregor, they have a coffee chat, and there is an update on Slack about that. But yeah, I think that it makes sense maybe because there is not that much activity from the other group, so maybe we can kind of absorb that into here. And I think Gregor is also part of this this working group. So yeah, I think that is the idea, right, Grant?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I talked to Grzegorz, and he essentially said it came down to capacity. I think there was some attempt to work on some issues after the blueprint was drafted, and then I think there were things like rapid actions and engineering allocations and all these other things that probably pulled people off of this, unfortunately. But so we kind of covered that. Yeah, the API vision working group. Yeah, what we're looking at, the scope of our effort is broader than just GraphQL. So we want to consider, REST and webhooks as well. And he seemed to be absolutely on board with us shaping this from here, using the GraphQL blueprint page and updating that. So if we wanted to have, an API, broader API vision blueprint, and then maybe GraphQL as a sub page under that. So we can shape that as we want. We can shape the issues as we want. He's a part of the group. He can participate as well, and likely will be. So I think we can start to take that and those who were participating and start contributing as much as we can to that. So I think what I'm looking at is build on top of the work that was already done, just that it's a bit broader scope than just GraphQL. So yeah, if anyone's working in a particular category of the API vision, you might look at those, look at the epic there and see if there are issues that are relevant, or look at the GraphQL blueprint and be thinking about how we might make changes there as well.
Okay, and the last point that we are almost on time. So if you have any idea how we can organize this better, I'm happy to hear any feedback, any ideas you have. So you can speak now or asynchronously, or leave a note, or anything that we can do to improve the group. I'm really happy to make any changes, and yeah. Okay, yeah, so I think that's it. So we will continue working asynchronously, and yeah, have a good week. See you.
Thank you. Have a good week. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.